One of the most important things about understanding resilience is we all have it. We all have the capacity as human beings to be resilient, to rise up from something tough and to learn from it and to choose to grow from it and be a better person. We all have that capacity, but we don't always choose it.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who is out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman, and today we're going to be talking about peace, resilience, and compassion, among other things, with Elizabeth Hamilton-Guarino and Dr. Katie Eastman, who have written a new book called The Peace Guidebook. Elizabeth is the founder and CEO of the Best Ever You Network, which is a global communication platform reaching millions, and she's one of the world's leading voices in personal development and peaceful leadership, inspiring a global movement toward authenticity, compassion, and change. Katie Eastman is an acclaimed grief and change expert, licensed therapist, a master grief coach, and the co-founder of Recreate Coaching and Counseling. She has over 4 decades of experience guiding individuals, families, organizations, and communities through life's most complex transitions. And we're going to be talking about not just world peace, but also inner peace and how we can achieve that. And we talk a lot about children and how we can work with children to provide them with emotional resilience and compassion. So let's jump in. This is Elizabeth Hamilton-Guarino and Dr. Katie Eastman. Well, I am so happy you guys are here. Katie and Elizabeth, we're going to be talking about, well, let's just say it's going to be about peace. That'll be the overarching theme underneath today's episode, but we don't know what we're going to get into. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves? We'll start with Katie because you're at the top of my screen. That's how I make decisions, by height. And so you'll introduce yourself, tell a little bit about you. I haven't done too many interviews with 2 people, so I'm extra excited about that also. And then Elizabeth will introduce herself, and then we're going to start talking about your book.
Well, I'm Dr. Katie Eastman, and I am all about peace, grief, growth, and I work as a life coach as well as a licensed psychotherapist, and I've been doing it for over 40 years.
You must be tired.
I'm getting more so, for sure, especially because my specialty is grief and trauma, and right now there's a lot of it.
And, you know, that is one of the things that comes up on this show all the time. So I'm no stranger to those things. Okay, Elizabeth's turn now.
Well, hi. Thanks for having us here today with you. I'm Elizabeth Hamilton-Guarino. Let's see. I'm 57. I have 4 sons. They are ages 25 to 31. We live in Maine. I've been married for about 30 years. And somewhere along the lines, I quit the financial services industry and started up Best Ever You. And this is our 4th book, my 4th book now. And it's just it's a blast to put books into the world. And that's what we are. We're putting books out into the world about peace, change, gratitude, success, all those topics that are tricky and big. And hard.
And big and important. Yeah. So Best Ever You is a platform?
It is. It is our platform that Katie and I started about almost 20 years ago now. It's called it's besteveryou.com, and we have the podcast, The Best Ever You Show, which has about 8 million downloads now. And, you know, we're just 2 moms in our jammies with our hair on top of our head and talking about peace.
That's
right?
How we wrote the book, literally at 4 a.m, 5 a.m. for me. Yeah. Yep. Sitting there with my slippers and my cat.
I love that. Where did you guys meet?
That's Katie's story.
I
Oh,
was at the
okay.
gym, believe
Were
it
you
or
her therapist, Katie?
no, 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 no. I was
Kind of.
I was
Kind
at,
of, though. For being honest, yes. No.
Unpaid. I
Unpaid,
mean,
but yeah.
yeah, I
no,
get it.
I was at the gym at 4 a.m, which is crazy in and of itself. And I reached down and saw this magazine, and it was Best Ever You. And I said, "Oh, that's interesting." And that was one of those moments where, listen, when your gut tells you do something, do it. I picked it up and I called her. And then we became friends, wrote another book together in her pool. And we've been friends ever since.
I love that. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow, you just went on pure instinct and just a gut feeling. I
Oh,
love
I
that.
do that a lot. Yeah, I believe in your gut telling you to do something, say yes.
And why that's important too is because, on the other end, on the receiving end of that phone call, I'm probably at that point crying a little bit and needed the assist, honestly, because you start up a business and you're like, where's this going? And, when people when people show up out of the blue like that, it can be life altering. And it's with the best energy and the best intentions. And it's kind of just what you maybe need in that moment to just, keep you going.
I don't think a lot of people realize that things get started without any expectations or knowledge of where it's going to go. It's just a thing that people do. I mean, everything I've always done, I didn't know where it was going to go. I didn't even think about where it was going to go, actually. It was just like, I want to try that. That looks interesting to me.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I never went, oh, I'm going to start a business that, sells shoes. I never thought, I don't think that way.
Mm-hmm.
We don't either. In fact, when we started the podcast, we were literally probably just talking into thin air. I don't know. We had Forbes Riley on as our first guest, and we're just, who's listening? You have no idea. And kind of
You
same.
don't know.
Yeah, you have no idea, and you have no idea the lives are going to change either. Who's listening and who might find a book or whatever it is. But we kind of did the same thing with the Peace Guidebook. We decided we were going to write a book about peace, signed the contract, and then had a gulp. But what'd we just do?
I know how to spell it, but that's all I got.
Yeah. It was definitely a moment of are we qualified to do this? And the answer to that is yes. Everybody's qualified to talk about peace.
Yeah, and it's really important for people to understand that the way we came to the concept of how to write the book was when we interviewed kids. We interviewed a group of elementary school kids about peace at a peace concert they were doing. And they said their answers about what is peace were kindness, being a good friend, helping other people. So very unlike adults who mainly think of peace in terms of war or absence of war, kiddos think of it the way Elizabeth and I think about it, which is inner peace. And that peace begins with all of us from the inside out.
When I'm thinking about kids, they can be so beautiful and so kind and all the things you just said, and they can be so mean and just awful. And I think that those capabilities are in everybody. Humans can soar to the highest heights and sink to the lowest of lows. I mean, and within each person, those things are there. And sometimes they're brought on. You can cultivate either one, and make that your thing. Some of it is, certainly as a kid, and since you deal in trauma, that those kinds of things can start very young and not the intention or fault of a child. But then those children, if they're not guided in a different direction, grow up to be adults that are disturbed in those areas. So it's a fascinating topic to think about. What is the choices that people want to make for themselves, and then outwardly how it spreads to other people.
We've been talking about on podcasts about pause, breathe, and choose, and the choose part being peace. We think it's kind of catchy. And Katie can explain it a little more too here. Chime in, Katie. But that peaceful pause, that breathing in love and exhaling peace, or breathing in peace and exhaling love. And then the next step is really important. It's choosing. are we going to choose peace in that moment? And we think if people can kind of remember those three things at any age, the world might be a completely different place.
And I think one of the things I love about the way we wrote the book is our honesty. And we put stories in there of people's raw, honest experiences when their peace was robbed from something that happened to them in their lives, and they regrouped and they refound it. And the reality is that in any moment, it only takes 30 seconds. The research says it only takes 30 to 40 seconds for your brain to reset, for your body to reset to a state of calm, for your emotions for you to choose which emotion you want to land on, and for you to regroup around what matters to you, what meaning, what your spirit is telling you that you want to hold right now in this moment. And so Elizabeth and I talk very honestly about the times when we lost it or we lose it. You know, four boys. I have a daughter. Of course, as a parent, you lose it from time to time, and being honest about that. But it's what you do in the next moment. What do you choose? What do you choose?
Yeah, and I don't think there's any shame or problem with losing it once in a while. Otherwise, you're just not even a human being, because particularly with children, they're so unreasonable and difficult, and you care about them so much that these tributaries of their behavior that they go in areas you think are terrible or dangerous or just unacceptable are so frustrating. You just want to pick them up and throw them into a wall. That's my visual. That's not something I've done, by the way. But I've certainly thought about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Either that, or you want to take them and you want to grab them, hold them, and protect them and not let them out of your sight. Parenting is very difficult. Yes.
Yeah, which is equally troubling.
Yeah.
Overprotecting is not good either.
Right.
It's it's like let the kid fall down and get up by themselves.
Right. Exactly.
And then and then here we are as adults in a world that's very challenging. And, your message is obviously a fantastic one. How do you spread a message like that, especially to people that seem to be not just closed off, but almost immune to the concept sometimes? There's so much distraction and so much false values that are floating around that people can grab onto. And it's, do you ever feel like you're just whistling into the wind because I know I do a lot. I just think like, well, what's the point of even bringing something up? I still do, but sometimes I find it just daunting. Like it seems so, and I'm not saying don't do it, of course, but sometimes I just, I'm like, is there anybody listening?
I think that's such an important point to go there, because I think we all feel that way. Is anybody listening? Is anybody paying attention? Does anybody love me? Is anybody, all that self-doubt and everything. And what I like most about what you said is you re-anchored it over back in self-love and are going to do it anyway, because that's so what we need right now. Because we have the saying, it's compassion is the heartbeat of peace. And we think that people are like a living actual expression of peace. And so I think, like as Katie was saying, for adults it might be a little retraining, and even for kids it might be a little bit of retraining. But we think that if we keep talking about it and say the same thing over again and get this book out into the world, that people are hugging the book actually, and saying things to us like, you guys are the queens of peace, and saying things like, this is a beacon of light and the thing I needed just right now. And I think we're landing in those arms of people who feel that way and need us right now. And I think that's the most important thing about this book. We wrote this book to hug you in the moment that you needed it most. We feel like this book can give you a hug and you can give it a hug. I did a book signing a couple of weeks ago, and people were literally had the book at their chest and they were swaying back and forth in line, just hugging the book. And it was so interesting, wasn't it, Katie?
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons they hug it is because it's practical. We have a saying, there's no fluff. We're a no fluff zone. We don't do fluff. And I can't do fluff as a trauma therapist. I mean, I just don't see the world that way. So it's practical. It gives you absolute tools that you can use. And we've used them. I've used them as a therapist in couples therapy. I've used them in tools with neighbors. I've used these tools with anyone where there's conflict, where there's confusion, where there's frustration around something they feel helpless about. Some of the tools in the Peace Guidebook are extremely helpful.
So is it a lot of that, and is there some anecdotal
both
things in there? Can you give me something? I love these. I love anecdotes. I just love like examples of how something worked. What was the situation, and what did somebody do, and how was it changed by this maybe a very simple thing?
Let's go with our contributors in chapter 4, Katie.
Yeah.
I think we go right to Chad and Jen. So we have 2 contributors who met through the process of writing this book. Both of them I know. I've known in the background of my life. One I've known my entire life because I went to preschool with him, and the other I've known for about 15 years, Jen. So Chad and Jen. And Chad both have been through pretty much hell and back with marriages, and they're both divorced, and now they're getting I don't want to get them married yet. I don't jump the gun, but they just bought a house yesterday together, and they're just the most wonderful story. They got peace tattoos, and they're in chapter 4, and they talk really candidly about their life. And Chad's a colon cancer survivor. There's just so much. Katie, chime in. There's just so much about them in that chapter that are so real life.
Right. And the other contributors have real life stories like meningitis, someone who almost died of meningitis when he was 19 in college. And how did he get through that? How did he move on with his life? We have a beautiful woman from Ukraine who escaped from Ukraine and is now living in Singapore. And she's every single day. You and I wake up and we have our coffee, and she looks to see who died last night. And that's a whole life journey of what does peace mean to me? How can I find peace when there's death all around me? So there's stories in there of people, of chaplain, of everyday folk, of famous folk, and going through life, hard stuff with life, and how did they do it? So it's very much relatable. There's something for everybody. And then the book ends with kids who made a difference in the world by creating this wonderful project where they're helping other people all the time. So they discovered their own sense of purpose as teenagers. So there's something for families, there's something for individuals, no matter what you're going through.
Yeah, those people that have had that level of serious, difficulty and challenge, sometimes those are the people that actually turn out to be the kindest and the most promoters of peace.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm always intrigued by people like that, because sometimes I'll meet somebody and I'll think, and this is embarrassing to say for me, since we're talking about no fluff. Sometimes I'll meet people that are super kind like that, and I'll think they're not being sincere. I think they're putting on an act. And then I'll find out that they've been through 10 times the crap I've been through. I mean, I'm not even close. And then I'll feel embarrassed about myself, and and I've had that happen more than once in life. So, I have to say, you don't know when you look at somebody what their history is and what goes on inside them.
No, you don't. No. And you don't know what they've had to do to get there.
Right.
You don't. Right.
I think that's one of the things, too, that we communicate in the book about each of us, too. We have each had very life-threatening situations come up. I am a human being with 4 life-threatening food allergies on board that I've had since my mid-20s. And I was resuscitated once while I was 6 months pregnant with our son, Cam, and another time after eating a bag of almonds. And so I know what it's like to have your life hanging in the balance there. And so does Katie.
Yeah, I had a pulmonary embolism couple of years ago and almost died. Very, very, very much should have died. A miraculous that I didn't die. And also I lived with infertility, and I talk about that. And so we are very raw in this book. We don't hide our own pain or our own growth, because we believe that peace can only come when people look at those challenges they've faced with an eye of growth.
And I think one of the other aspects about peace is when you have something happen to you, and I'll just generalize that like that, you often feel like you're alone in that happening to you, and whatever it is, and you might be sitting there alone feeling shame or sadness or incredible grief or whatever it is. And so one of the things about the Best Ever You Network and all of our books, because we have 5 books that we've written between us 2 together, are that we really like it to we really like to show up for people and have other people show up for people. And when you share your story or even goals or whatever it is, when you share that and vocalize it out loud, it allows other people to show up for you. And people are often surprised by that. And then back to your other point where the kindest people have gone through quite a bit. I completely agree with you. And I used to be kind of like that too, where you just brush by somebody and not care so much. And guilty a little bit here and there in my life. And I've just adopted the phrase of, just be kind to everybody that you meet, because you have no clue what they're going through at all. And I can remember after my dad died, I was up at the grocery store and I was literally like crying over the pears, and the pears were gorgeous. But this woman was standing next to me, and I'm 5'3" on a big hair day. Katie's 5'11" on a small hair day. So, we're this and that. But I'm sitting there, there's somebody shorter than me, and she goes, "Can I give you a hug?" And it was a older lady. "Can I give you a hug?" And I'm like, "Well, sure." And it was before COVID. And she said, "Which one of your parents just died?" And I said, "Well, my dad just died." And I said, "How do you know that?" And she goes, "Well, the look on your face is unmistakable. Let me give you a hug." And she goes, "My dear, you got to put one paw in front of the other and keep going." And I'm like, "What'd you just say?" And my dad, prior to him passing, when I went home for Christmas to see him, he said, "This is going to be my last Christmas, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Well, what am I going to do without you?" And he said, "You're going to put one paw in front of the other and keep going," because I love cats and dogs. And so it freaked me out. I'm like, was that an angel? Who was that? I have no idea to this day who was that. I'm like, I like to kind of think that my dad didn't turn into like a 4'9" little old lady, but I'm not positive, not completely sure. But it was, and it just made me think, be kind to everybody in passing. You have absolutely no idea. Ever. And I was like that before, but I'm really, really overly aware now.
Another real challenge is to be kind to people that aren't very kind to you. Right. Sometimes it's just the kindest thing you can do is keep your distance, but other times it is to actually not react to somebody being difficult, because they're usually, it's really always more about them than it is about you, and they're acting a certain way. And I always wonder, like, what is going on? What happened right before this, or what's your history that you're being so difficult and rude and just impossible? And sometimes you can break through that with kindness.
Sometimes, we have some stories in the book like that of people who are really, really rude, and we call it, people problems in the book. Yeah. And I'll quote maybe part of the book here if I can. We say on page 48, "Some days being a peaceful person in our society feels like being a dolphin doing water ballet in a tank full of sharks."
Yeah, well, you do. You sometimes, yeah. It's I've had people openly say like that you're being a fool to be that way. That's not the way the world works. It's survive, it's eat or be eaten. It's all those sort of sayings that justify people's selfishness, basically. And that they almost see people like that as chumps. And it's, I don't agree with that, of course, but but I can understand why somebody would go in that direction. And it's really it's very unfortunate, because it hurts to see a human being that twisted up in that way.
Yeah, and as a grief therapist, I can tell you that most often that's unresolved grief. That's a pain from the past that hasn't gotten healed. And it's kind of festered like a wound that doesn't get dealt with and becomes entitlement and victimhood and all kinds of nastiness. And it's fear. And one of the things we talk about in the Peace Guidebook is the importance of connection. And when people have so many wounds that they haven't dealt with, it's hard for them to connect with other people. And the only way they know how to do it is by putting you down. So I always think of it as that when I meet somebody like that, they're wounded.
Absolutely.
And they don't know how to be any other way.
Well, I just know for myself when I'm being a jerk, it's usually because something's bothering me about my situation or who I think I am, or some kind of a fear of something's going to happen that I don't want.
Yes.
And it's a tough thing to look at because you actually have to take responsibility for yourself, which, you know, a lot of people don't want to do that. Certainly.
Exactly.
24. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You know, I was just thinking about, there was a guy, this isn't a big thing, but this is when this kindness thing worked for me. I used to be a stand-up comedian a long time ago. And I just moved to LA and I was working at this place, and there was a guy who was hosting the shows, and he was not very nice to me. And he was being very difficult, but then I sort of saw that he wasn't being treated well by a lot of the people that were, you know, higher up than him and the boss and all that. And he was really not nice to me. And I walked in one night and he started, and I go, "Hey man, it is so great to see you." And I hugged him. I didn't want to. And he hugged me so hard back, like a little child.
Yep.
And we became friends after that. It was just, you know, not super close, but close enough that we, you know, talked all the time, and it was never the same. And it was so graphically in front of me, and I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that worked." And I really meant it. I think that was the other part of it. I actually meant it. I really I had compassion for what I thought was him being in a difficult situation. And I'm not a particularly huggy guy. I'm just not really that guy, you know, but I was that day. You know,
you listened to your instinct.
Yeah. It was cool. I was just like, whoa, it's, you know, it's the opposite. Your instinct is to go, you know, fuck you, get out of my face. That's what, you know, and I'm sure people did that to him.
I love that story. The whole time you were talking, I'm like, you know, apply love. You know, we say, Katie says, show up with love and compassion, show up in the moment. And, you know, that's the counter. The counter is compassion and love, just like what you did. I think, you know, this might be a little bit off topic, but I'm a big fan of cats and dogs. And I think the same thing with, you know, we've adopted a lot of cats and a lot of dogs, and sometimes they come at you and they're so broken and they're so sad and they're so this and they're so that. And I had a feral cat who we adopted, and I kept saying to the boys, you know, apply love, apply love, apply love. She turned out to be the coolest cat, and she passed away. She was 23. Same thing with humans, you know, because they get backed up into a corner and they're scratching and biting, and, you know, think of it like that. You know, they just don't know how to navigate it. And, you know, some of us do, and some of us don't. And some, you know, we're all at different moments, and we trade off all the moments all the time. And so if you do what you did, you know, that helps another human in that moment so much. That's why Katie and I, when we wrote another book, it was called Percolate, Let Your Best Self Filter Through. And it's a Hay House book. And we said, random acts of kindness create waves of peace. So random acts of kindness create waves of peace. And that's exactly what you did. That guy will never forget that. And maybe he'll even pay it forward. Who knows, right?
Yeah, we don't know.
And that's what the kids talked about too, Bob. That's what they said when they talked about peace. They talked about being kind and acting with kindness. So I think it's something we know when we're born, but we forget. Yeah. We get caught up in our stuff.
In life.
in life.
Or somebody, or somebody, like I always say, like to my kids, as they're older now, again, they're 25 to 31, but when they were little, I'm like, standard issue for all children should be like earplugs and bubble wrap. Just here you go out the door. Here's some earplugs and here's some bubble wrap, because man, it's bumpy. People say mean crap to you. And we had one of our kids wound up being a professional baseball player in Germany. And you can imagine that journey from being a little kid, at age 6 months, throwing a baseball around, because that's what he did, to, playing baseball professionally in Germany and playing college baseball at Georgetown and playing college baseball at New Haven and all this stuff. And he is 5'11" on a big hair day and a left-handed pitcher. And that kid has had every kind of shit said to him over the years. I can't even tell you. Because people don't want you to achieve your dream or your goal or your this or your that. You've got naysayers around you. And I used to say, we got to surround you with love, and here's some bubble wrap and here's some earplugs, because you got to follow your dream. And that's a really big part of it out there. It's, peace to you might be success. Peace might be emotionally. Peace might be gratitude. Peace, whatever it is for you. We redefine peace all the time in different ways. And peace for him was Georgetown and surrounding himself with people who had his back and who fostered his love of baseball and his ability to pitch and all this stuff. And when he got hit with that line drive that was 111 miles an hour at his face, and he put his hand up and crushed his pitching hand and has a pin now in his pitching hand, the coach believed in him so much, believed in him more than he believed in himself in all those moments, that he came back up and helped pitch them to the championships. And then when he was done playing college baseball, he went overseas. And it's stuff like that is so powerful for people's inner peace, because somebody can rock you with their words and it can stick and you can quit.
I wonder why or how some people can let that stuff roll off of them and know inside that they're okay, and other people just take things so hard, and they, if somebody says something to them negative, they believe it.
Yeah.
And I understand a little child, like particularly if a parent says it, what else are you going to think? But when you're an adult, you actually have that choice to believe the thing the person says. And my whole thing too is like, well, even if what the person is saying is true, so what?
Exactly. Right. But it takes even teaching our kids this set of skills at a young age. It's not something that gets, like this is, life skills 101 in, sixth grade or anything. You could have a mean teacher who says something to you and you might believe it. You're stupid. Well, there it is. You feel like you're stupid the rest of your life, or what, we've all had crap said to us, every one of us. And Katie was so bullied. And Katie and I both are pretty open about the crap that's been said to us in the book. But Katie, do you want to tell your bullying story? Yeah.
Sure. I was followed home from school and they threw rocks at me. And thankfully they didn't hit me. But I remember very much I was in middle school and I was terrified. It was about a mile and a half. And I actually prayed for peace. At that time, I was 15 or 13, must have been 13. And I remember just thinking, if I hold the word peace in my body and in my mind, maybe that'll help. And they never hit me. They kept throwing them and they came pretty darn close and they kept calling me names for a mile and a half. But I walked all the way home just holding that word peace the whole time. And I somehow knew that at 13.
That you'd be okay. That
I'd be okay, or I trusted it. And
I always think about like the next time you see those people in a different situation, it's like they're sitting next to you in a class and you're like, oh, hey, how you doing? Thanks for throwing rocks at me yesterday.
Right. And I didn't retaliate ever. And my mom sure wanted to, but I didn't. I just stayed peaceful with it and just let it go. And they never did anything again. And it's interesting. I cyber stalked them one night on Facebook.
Of course you did.
I wondered if they ever remembered doing that. I didn't connect with them, but we've all gone through a lot, and you look back when you were a kid and why you did certain things, and They didn't know any better. They were hurting. I know some of
Oh.
their stories now, and boy, they were not pretty.
Rarely are they. Generally, people don't do that unless they're
Right.
coming from a rough situation or they're trying to fit in with people that they don't really care about anyway.
Right. Yep.
How do you talk about, I guess the word would be resilience in the face of those things? How do you sort of educate or inform people about some of the tricks and techniques that you can use to not be so affected by these kinds of abusive things?
Well, the first thing, I did my dissertation on resilience. And one of the most important things about understanding resilience is we all have it. We all have the capacity as human beings to be resilient, to rise up from something tough and to learn from it and to choose to grow from it and be a better person. We all have that capacity, but we don't always choose it. So the first thing is to educate people that they have that capacity. Kiddos need to know this when they're born, that they have the capacity to be kind no matter what. The practical is the peaceful pause that we talk about, the 30, 40 seconds to make a choice. What's the peaceful, kind choice? Walk away, take a break, do what you need to do. But the most important thing is if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not looking at your own wounds, you're not taking self-care as a vital part of your daily living, then you're more likely to react instead of respond. So those are all really practical ideas. And we give specific examples all through the book. But one of the most important things we say in the book is we have 10 principles of peace. And the last one is purpose. Well, the last one is peace, but purpose is one of them. And I know that when we hurt and we choose to learn from it and help someone else from it, that becomes our purpose. And that makes us a better human being. And that ripples peace outward. That's the book in its essence right there.
Yeah, the idea of having some kind of a purpose, doesn't really even matter what it is that is like a guidepost to keep going in a certain direction, to meet that purpose as often as you can, because it usually makes you feel pretty good when you're doing that. I was always kind of intrigued by people that had a real like a purpose when they were very young and they knew this is what they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I floundered quite a bit. I knew a lot of the stuff I didn't want to do. That was pretty obvious. But what of the narrow choices of what I did want to do? Which one or two or three things am I going to do? Mm-hmm. And that is, in the face of being told you can't do that.
Yeah,
that's not a safe way to go. That's not a practical way to go. People like you don't do that. All the things that you get told by families and societies, and the rules that of which there aren't any. Now, who knows why I was able to do that, and maybe some people can't. I don't know.
Sometimes, Elizabeth, you can explain this, the purpose being small things.
Yeah, sometimes it's not. I'm with you, Bob, on the whole. I used to be like, is my purpose going to appear? Some of us aren't born with the Taylor Swift singing chops, and so our purpose isn't clear. I know I used to think, okay, I'm a pretty good gymnast. Is this my purpose? I don't know. Is Cam's purpose baseball? I don't know. And so sometimes it unfolds differently. Sometimes your purpose is just to be there in a moment where somebody needs you. You have no idea, again, what somebody needs in that moment. It might just be your energy or your smile or your kindness or whatever. So, I think our purpose here, maybe might not be a thing, but maybe to be that kind human, to be that compassionate human, and so forth. I know one of my things I talk about a lot is chocolate chip cookies. From having food allergies, and being resuscitated once from a walnut in a chocolate chip cookie, I learned how to make nut-free chocolate chip cookies pretty quickly.
Well,
Yeah. And then I discovered that, well, there's 1 in 13 kids with food allergies, particularly nut allergies, and they can't eat cookies either. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to make and donate a lot of chocolate chip cookies around the country. And so I think a lot of my purpose personally has been to help people stay alive and thrive with food allergies. And so sometimes it's something that might happen to us, and we feel a need to, help others be aware. We raise awareness for it, or do what we can do to make others a little more comfy in the world. And here's your cookies. Those cookies even went to Robin Williams way back when, the late great Robin Williams. So you have no idea how you, just by being you, authentically you, is so important. Authentically you, because we look around and we think, oh, I should be this, or I should be that, or they're better than me, or they make more money, or have a cooler house, or Katie and I have I have a pool and she might not, and she gets a little frustrated sometimes. It's like, I gotta fly out there and jump in that pool. We all have stuff, and it's just important to just take a breath and just be really happy that you are who you are, and be authentically you, and give yourself that giant hug, and be, compassion and self-love and everything, because that makes for such a better human in the world. You'll be a lot more kind toward others, for sure. I don't know. I just talked way too much about that, but yeah. Sorry.
Well, I don't know if that's a topic that can be talked about too much, because it's important.
So. I had a great teacher about this. He was 8, and he was 3 days before he died. He said to his mom, the purpose of life is to make a difference. And she said, well, how did you know that? And he goes, you did know it, but you grew up. So this little dying child at 8 years old told the world that the purpose of life is to make a difference. And I think he was right. I don't think it's a big P. We talk in the Peace Guidebook. It's not a big P. It's a little P. It's waking up every day, making a choice of peace.
That's a tense thing to hear from your kid.
Yeah, she was quite blown away, but he made her promise she would tell as many people as she ever could. And so when I wrote my book, he's in this book, everywhere I go, I tell that story, because that makes his life matter.
And the idea of making a difference doesn't have to be huge.
No, it doesn't.
Have to be media worthy or anything like that.
No.
It could just be one person that you made a difference. You told them they were okay when they didn't think they were.
Right.
Even your kids, you can make a difference like that with your own children.
Oh, absolutely.
Instead of being, like they come home with a C and railing on them for getting a C, give them a hug. It's just, it's parenting, and it's, I was on a podcast, I don't know, it was probably about 6 months ago now. And I was there to teach kids about gratitude, and teach parents how to teach children about gratitude. And I love gratitude, rooting in gratitude and helping people have that as a foundation with some, all those high vibrational words, the joy, the not toxic positivity, as we say, but, the joy, the compassion, the gratitude, the love, all those things are so foundational for kids, and to teach them how to access those things when they need them is so different. Like, my kids were raised with the word #gratitude on the refrigerator. Oh. And big #gratitude, because I knew they knew hashtag, and I'm like, there's the word, and they're going to read it. And then we got them, #gratitude matching shirts for Christmas one year as kind of like a joke, and but serious, kind of thing. And then whenever one of us isn't grateful, they'll go like, #gratitude, Mom. You get it back.
You get it back. Yeah. And our daughter, whenever she brought a report card home, the first question we'd ask her is, okay, we're not even going to look at the numbers or the letters. We want to know, were you kind? And so she learned that from square one. And when she graduated from high school, all of her teachers said the same thing. She was such a kind friend to others. She was such a kind person.
Yep.
Remember they used to have citizenship grades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
when we were at
Yeah.
least I think like through middle school when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You get the grade and then the behavior and then the
Mhm.
citizenship, something like that.
I
Mhm.
love it. Yeah, our
Uh,
baseball player, you can be on a team of guys like that, and at first people might be apprehensive to you because they think, okay, here comes trouble. And my son has experienced that, being on the receiving end of that vibe. In classes, they would assume that you're going to get bad grades or be trouble or whatever in college. And so to have a kid who gets straight A's and was kind, and the whole team was pretty much, like that, very purpose driven, was so opposite of what people would expect, that, they would get citizenship comments and things like that. And I remember Cam well, all the boys in high school, but I'll talk about Cam because he's the one I'm authorized to talk about from my kids.
okay, I get that.
Yeah. He was friends with a bunch of misfit kids in high school, and people would pick on them. And he would use baseball and his status as a Gatorade Player of the Year for baseball to barrier them from crap. And
Yeah.
and he is so good friends with all those kids still to this day. And so, we're more proud of him for that, like Katie is for Callie, than any grade or accolade or pitch or win or anything like that. Being the good human is key. It's such a cool thing to
Yeah.
have good humans.
We need more of them.
Yes.
More of them. Yes. More of them.
Which is why we wrote the book. We want the
Yeah.
ripple effect. If you start acting peaceful in your life and teach your kids, then that ripples out. That's why we wrote the book. That's why we were up at 4 a.m. writing this book.
And we have the phrase percolate peace, which is a website, percolatepeace.com. And you can actually go to that website. On the front of it, on the homepage, and log in a moment of peace or a wish or something that makes you peaceful, or a wish for another human or whatever it is. And one of our goals is to get 1 million people over on that page, Percolating Peace.
And telling us how they're doing it, buying somebody coffee anonymously, or all kinds of things are coming up that people are doing.
Even just, if you're walking by somebody's house and there's trash in front of the house, you pick it up.
Yeah.
And you don't say to yourself, I'm not picking that up. I didn't put it there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know what percentage of time I do that, but it's not 100%.
Mm-hmm.
My husband does it a lot. My husband's on garbage patrol. When the crows get at the garbage, he'll go out there and pick up people's garbage. But it's also one of the reasons why we live in South Carolina in the wintertime now, because picking up somebody's trash that was all over in the winter, he fell and pretty much, I give it, fractured his shoulder.
Ouch.
And so we both are like, we've had enough of winter. And so we spent some time in South Carolina during the winter times now. But yeah, so but don't let, my point there wasn't so much South Carolina. My point was, like, don't let something negative about that deter you from continuing to do it. So he still goes out and picks up the garbage, even though he's fallen once.
Well, yeah, why not?
Yeah,
Right.
you'd be surprised. People will be like, I'm not doing that anymore. I fell.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be more careful. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah. I clean the alley behind the houses on my street. I just took that on. I didn't talk to anybody about it. I just, when I see stuff, I take care of it. And I don't think nobody even knows. I haven't told anybody. My wife knows, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's how I was raised. My father had a really strong belief that if you did something quietly and anonymously, it would be so much more fun. And so at his funeral, we found out he helped pay for somebody's surgery. He did all kinds of things. We had no idea.
Didn't even tell his family.
Didn't even tell his family. And so we had he was a lawyer, so we had legal pads out at the funeral, and people wrote down the stories. And afterwards we read them and we were like, my mom didn't know. Nobody knew.
Wow.
We were raised, my parents owned a chain of video stores in Iowa and Illinois, and there's 11 of us kids, for which I am in the middle of that crazy scenario. But they used to anonymously donate all of so that we go to church, and my parents would hand out a list, and it would be, what do you need? Right. And my parents would teach us kids, like, you'd be surprised what's on this list, because we were thinking, oh, TVs and, I need a new car, or whatever people's wish list is, crazy stuff. Right. And my parents wouldn't say they were buying it or anything like that. They just anonymously hand this list out. No one knew where it was from. And then they would buy every single thing on that list anonymously for everybody. And it was things like underwear, toilet paper, and t-shirts over and over and over again. Underwear, toilet paper, and t-shirts, paper towels, a coat, shoes, socks. And I remember being a little kid and seeing that and being just absolutely flabbergasted that people would need socks, because I was raised so differently, and it was such an awareness that was so important for me to have and be aware of. And I think that's part of why they did it. They taught all of us that, other people matter, other people are less fortunate, the tables turned, which they did. My parents went completely bankrupt, everything. So it's just so important when you stop and just actually look at other humans and say, are you okay? For real.
When you have certain things, there's an assumption that everybody else has them too. I'm not talking about extravagance. I'm talking about toilet paper.
Basic stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
And to realize that it's mind blowing when you think, what is that like?
Oh, I remember crying. Just cry. I'm so sensitive now, and I was even more sensitive as a kid, or maybe both. I don't know. But I remember just bawling, reading those. I still have them, and they're smudged from my tears, and saying to my mom and dad, like, somebody needs toilet paper. We need to, like, I got some upstairs. Let's go get it and give it to them now, kind of thing. I just remember feeling the urgency of, and it was universal. It was like everybody in the church needed the same things. It was just wild how people needed things and didn't have access to some of the things that we had access to. So I'm super glad my parents did that.
Sounds like a good church too.
A great church. It was a great church.
Acknowledging that kids really need to see that, and they love it. I mean, I'm a child therapist. That's one of my specialties, and working with kids for 40 years, I can tell you, they don't want to be brats. They want to be helpful. They want to be lovable. I used to give them, when they graduated from therapy, I'd give them a diploma that said they were loved and lovable, and that they knew that now. And so I think that's part of our Peace Guidebook message as well, is, understanding all of us are loved and lovable, and all of us are connected. And it's very inclusive. The Peace Guidebook is extremely inclusive. There's people from all over the world in this book.
And you never know who needs your kindness. I remember I had a friend in high school. We were cheerleaders together. Her name was Jill Nyans, and she's since passed of cancer. Hello to her family if you're listening, because we all love each other. But she used to come all the way out of her way. Like, she lived over by the high school and I did not. And she would pick me up in her pink Studebaker. It was a really neat car.
I know those cars.
It was a really cool car. And she knew my parents were going bankrupt, and she would come and get me and make sure I was okay. And then, just, you never know who needs your kindness. And I remember saying to her, why are you doing this? And she's like, you need me right now. You need this right now. And we'll always be friends forever and ever and ever. I'll come get you whenever you need a ride. It was amazing. And, we lost a true angelic human being way too soon from cancer, because she was a special, special human. But that taught me so much at such a young age, that I remember giving people rides, like thinking of it and being like, I'll got you. I'll pay, just pay it forward. I got you. I'll give you a ride. I'll give you a ride home. It taught me. I was thinking of Jill as we're talking, and she used to give me rides every day. I mean, completely out of her way, probably 5 miles out of her way to come and get me.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
It's just, doing it because it's just a kind thing to do, and not wanting anything from it.
That is being peaceful, is lifting people up, lifting yourself up first, but then lifting up others.
Well, I used to think that, you know how you were saying people are kind to you and you don't know whether it's real or not? I used to think people would be kind to me because they wanted free movie rentals. I'm saying that
Well,
honestly.
it's yeah.
And I remember thinking at one
Well,
point, like, here's another one who just wants free movie rentals for life or
but
something.
then there are people that
wasn't true.
do things like that.
Yeah,
That is a real
just
thing
being
where people
kind.
use people to get access to something.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to be compassionate toward that
Yeah.
when you feel like you're being used in that way.
Mhm.
But at the same time, why are they doing that? What is missing?
Right.
Yeah.
Why, exactly. My old Vermont father used to say that there's a lot more horses' asses than there are horses. And it was his way of saying that, sometimes people act like that, but we don't need to give it any power.
The other phrase the kids were raised with on the refrigerator is, don't follow the masses, for sometimes the M is silent.
Yeah.
That's what they were raised. I'm sorry, but they were raised with those hashtag gratitude and don't follow the masses, for sometimes the M is silent.
Yes. I mean, I have to keep that stuff as sort of a bemused corner of my mind, seeing it, not make it the thing, and not make it the main sort of belief system about.
Right.
Yeah, we know, but
it makes you laugh. It makes you laugh, and it takes away the sting.
Really?
Yeah.
I just think of that phrase, like when somebody tries to pull something, it's like, really? That's what you're doing?
Yeah.
That's what you want to do right now?
Right. Yeah. You really want to do this? Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I like, how's that working out for you?
Yeah.
Oh, God,
it's a great phrase. How's that working out for you?
How's that working for you?
Yeah. My husband will say, like, if somebody was difficult or something, he'll say, well, they were interesting. I know that means they were just the biggest pain in the ass ever.
Yeah,
they were interesting.
Very polite.
Yeah, he's a lawyer. and a good kind. He's a federal securities lawyer, so he's not a mean court lawyer or anything like that. But every once in a while you come across somebody sticky, and he'll be like, yeah, they were interesting.
Well, I really enjoyed talking to you. What a great topic. And like I said before we started, I haven't done this topic. I mean, it's intersected with a few other things, but to be able to talk to two people that are really making this their purpose and have been doing it, it's just really a real treat. Let's go over some of obviously the title of the book, the podcast, the platforms. Let's lay it all out so the folks can get more of you guys.
All right. I'll start. Katie, chime in. So the title of the book is The Peace Guidebook, How to Cultivate Hope, Healing, and Harmony for the Good of Humankind. And it is available wherever books are sold. We're going to just throw a little thing on there for Amazon right now, though, because when books go into the wild live, a majority of them are sold on Amazon. And of course, Barnes & Noble and things like that, but we pay pretty close attention to Amazon at first. And so we are ranking number 2 on Amazon right now. And we're trying to cross that hurdle to number 1. We're trying to get those 50 reviews up and all that stuff. So we do feel a little bit like we're processing through people like, hi, we just met you. Can you put a review on Amazon? Thank you. We're trying not to be obnoxious.
Yeah, well,
we're feeling a little obnoxious, but it's, the more people who see that at number 1, the more people we're going to help. And that's really the purpose behind it. It's not like us selling books or anything like that. It's more like it's visible. Yeah. And that's the motive. And so, and then we have percolatepeace.com and besteveryou.com. And then Katie's got a really good, I think you should mention your book, Katie, your other book too, because it's such a great book.
I wrote a book called Uplifting, Inspiring Stories of Loss, Change, and Growth. And I wrote it about my life and how I lifted myself up, but also I had these dying children, their families. I've worked with trauma victims and so many inspiring people that I've worked with that I had to tell their stories because otherwise people would never learn from them. And they're so uplifting. My daughter came up with the name because when you're down as low as you can get in your life and you lift yourself up and then other people lift you up and then you lift others up, that to me is what I call the ripple of compassion. And that's what the book's about. How do you do that? And I came up with questions to ask yourself so that if you are feeling wounded, but you're not really sure where or why, the questions help evoke those answers for you.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a podcast in itself.
Yeah.
It is. Yep.
I mean, the stories of that. I mean, that's. I mean, inspiring stories like that are really powerful.
Yes.
Yeah, after this launches, we're coming back for our other books because we got a lot to
Okay.
say into the
All right.
world. But we've got the Change Guidebook, which probably wouldn't exist if I hadn't met Katie and we didn't write Percolate. And then we've got the Success Guidebook. And you know, it's interesting too, because right now I'm looking at Amazon and I'm looking at everything and they're all trending. And so you put one
There's a
book out
need.
and they all go with, and I think there's just a strong need for our content about grief, our content about success, because you know, I didn't write a book about like people flipping houses and making money. It's about when so. it's really it's my struggling song too. I really want this book to do better because it's about when you feel like crap and when you don't feel like you're enough and when you feel like the underdog and you feel like nothing's going your way and all that stuff. They're just, all of our books I think have this underlying theme of believing in each other, believing in yourself, having people around you that might believe in you more than you in the moment, and you know, just trying to, you know, come through this lifetime being kind to other people and teaching that compassion and just all of those things that feel a little, you know, touchy-feely and woo-woo and whatever you want to say, but those skills are so needed, whether you're parenting, whether you're a leader. We're just really trying to reach just as many people as we can with the messaging.
Well, those are the people that I remember the most, the people that were the nicest to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They leave you with a feeling. They don't just leave you with, you know, something tangible. They leave you with a lasting feeling. It's incredible that people can be so powerfully impactful that way.
I actually have that quote on something here in my office. It's a famous quote of, "You won't remember what people say to you, but you'll remember how they made you feel."
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. And I want to echo that too, Elizabeth, because we're starting out on book tours here and book signings, and we're going to be meeting a lot of people. And our goal is we just want to lift peace. We just want to lift peace. We want them to feel our peace. We feel blessed by this book for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I feel blessed being able to talk to you today. What a wonderful way for me to start my day, or with the middle of my day, but it's great.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you. Much appreciation for you folks listening to The Exploding Human. The website is theexplodinghuman.com. You can also listen on YouTube. That is The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. Once again, I want to thank Elizabeth Hamilton-Guarino and Dr. Katie Eastman for being on the show. Have a fantastic day. Thank you.